A while back, I published a video called AI, A Race to the Bottom. It was about how the price of the different models keeps getting cheaper and how exciting that was to me about what we could do with these things. And on one hand, I was kind of right, but on the other, I was really, really wrong and actually feel like I was a little bit misled. When you look at charts like this, it seems pretty clear how much different models cost. If we look here, we'll see that O3 Pro and Claude 4 Opus Thinking are really expensive and other models aren't. These prices are done in terms of million tokens input and output. So a million tokens of input to Claude 4 Opus costs $15, and a million tokens of output from Claude 4 Opus costs $75. That's a lot of money, especially when you compare to things like 2.5 Flash, which is 30 cents per mil in and $2.50 per mil out. It was even cheaper before with 2.0 Flash. There's a lot to consider here, but it seems pretty obvious. Like, okay, Grok 4 is like 3 to 20x cheaper than Claude 4 Opus, right? Right? Well, when I ran my benchmark, that was not the case. In fact, Grok 4 cost 2.5 times more than Gemini 2.5 Pro did at almost $5, and it cost literally 20 to 30 times more than Claude 4 Opus did at 19 cents, running the exact same benchmark. So what the hell is going on? Why is Grok 4 so expensive even though the tokens are way cheaper? Why are there so many models that are charging so much for tokens? And most importantly, when we look at the artificial analysis cost to run the benchmark, why does this chart look nothing like the other cost chart? There's a lot to dig into here, and the result is very expensive. I've personally spent way too much money running all of these benchmarks to validate this information myself. And as much as I hate giving money to Grok, I've had to get these numbers for y'all. Someone's got to cover the bill. Quick word from today's sponsor, and then we'll dive right in. AI models are getting better every day. We've seen the impact on code, but have you seen the impact on the image gen, video gen, and audio gen world? It's crazy how much things are changing. There's a problem, though. Those different models are a lot harder to set up. You can't just drop them in the way you do with a different language model. There are so many different APIs, billing systems, and weird platform stuff you have to work around. Unless you use today's sponsor, Fal. These guys have made adding generation to your apps way easier. It almost feels like the old Heroku days where it's just you hop in, you click, and you're ready to go. But it's like levels ahead of everything else I have tried. It makes me feel pain when I go into the Google Cloud dashboard to make sure things are set up properly because it's just so much better. Let me show you really quick. You can explore all the different models they have. They have an awesome gallery where you can check the different type of model that you're looking for, and they support a lot of different things from other companies too, like Kling's video models, the Flux Pro context models, and even VO3 from Google. It's actually the easiest way to add video gen from Google to your applications right now. Here's a quick demo using the Recraft V3 text image. Corgi riding a skateboard. Run. You can change all these additional settings, change the resolution, styles, colors, etc. It tells you how much it'll cost per gen and how many gens you can do for $1. Really good information to have. But most importantly, it generates a good image. And now when I click the API tab, we see all the things we expect as developers. Click the JavaScript node option here, click PNPM because that's what we want to use. You can install the Fal client if you like, or you can just hit it via fetch if you feel like doing that instead. Drop your API key in and you're ready to go. Fal.subscribe, pass it the model you want to use, pass it the input, whatever other customization you want to do to the request, get updates when it's in progress if you want to, and then you get the result when it's done. It couldn't be easier to set up, and more importantly, it couldn't be easier to switch between different models and even between different providers, because all you have to do is change the string here. I promise you, I've been through it. Switching different ways to do image gen is not fun at all. If we had just started with Fal, it would have been way easier, and the more I've been playing with them, the more I wish I used them for everything we had built. If you haven't already, check them out today at soidev.link/Fal. So let's talk about why AI is getting more expensive. There are two major factors to cost. One is cost per token. If you're not already familiar with tokens, it's just how the input is broken down when you give it to a model. If I grab some random code and I go paste it into the OpenAI tokenizer, it will show you how it breaks this info down into tokens. Tokens are what the models use to process the information and predict the most likely next token. It's the basis unit for breaking information down in a way that the models can use it. If you give this something a little more word-like and less code-like, you'll see the breakdown's very different. Here is how this copy here gets broken down into tokens. 374 characters, 83 tokens. It's roughly 4 characters per token. Depends a lot on things. This is also why JSON formatting for your inputs isn't great, because it's really token heavy due to the amount of additional space taken up by a lot of the characters and whatnot in the format, compared to something like XML, which tends to be a little more efficient. So that's what a token is. So when we're talking about the million tokens cost, that would be 1 million input tokens costs an amount, and then 1 million out costs a different higher amount, because generating new tokens is more expensive than processing existing ones. So the cost per token is the first cost, but there's a second cost, an arguably significantly more important one as things have started to change: reasoning. The problem with reasoning is that it is significantly increasing the number of output tokens being generated. So as a quick example to test with, I have given the system prompt from Skatebench, which is a benchmark I made to measure how well different models can name skateboarding tricks. I tell it that you're a trick naming assistant, give a name of a trick given the description, give just the most common name, and I'm going to ask it, what is effectively a 360 flip? The board spins 360 degrees backside and flips in the kickflip direction. The skater does not spin. This is a 360 flip. I'm giving this to Kimi K2, which is a non-reasoning model. And it said backside 360 flip, which is wrong, but fine. That was 7 tokens of output. Let's compare this to a reasoning model. Let's use one that actually gives us the reasoning info. One of the few things I really like Anthropic about, they give us the reasoning. So let's use Claude 4 reasoning medium budget. And now it's generating all of these reasoning tokens and still gives us a very small answer of backside 360 flip. So that was 255 tokens versus 7. Now let's compare this to Grok 4. Grok 4 doesn't even give you the ability to pick a budget for reasoning. So it reasons for however long it wants to, and it doesn't even give you the reasoning tokens. It just says thinking, thinking over and over again. It thinks it's still generating when it's not, because the Grok 4 API is incredibly unstable and unreliable. 603 tokens. 603 tokens for 2 words. Do you understand how absurd and stupid that is, especially when they don't give you those tokens? Considering how much more expensive output is than input, that means something. And if we look at the results from running the entire benchmark, you'll see that it costs more than 2x more than every other model on the chart. In fact, if you add up every other model I have run Skatebench on, it still is less money than running it on Grok 4 one time, because it can't help but think. Yeah. And when you show this on a performance versus cost chart, it looks even funnier, because O3 cost literally 5 cents to run the test and scored better than Grok 4 that cost $5 to run the same test. 100 times difference in cost for slightly worse performance. Grok 4 is an incredible model. This rant was inspired by an article that was just sent to me that I would like to read with y'all, because I have a feeling I'm going to be angry about the same things that Ethan here is. So let's dive in. Models will get 10 times cheaper and will have 90% margins. Token volume increases 10,000x. Yeah. Remember my video about why the cursor price went up? It was the same deal. The average request went from a few hundred tokens at most to a few thousand tokens at minimum. That's a massive change in the cost profile for something like this. If we were to take my example here and throw this into the tokenizer, it's 83 input tokens. So in my example here, it's input 83 tokens, always. Let's say that we ran this 100 times. Let's say we ran it 1,000 times. We ran this 1,000 times, so it's 83,000 input tokens. And then output varies depending on the model. We'll start with Kimi K2. Kimi K2 generated 7 tokens. So 1,000 times, it would be 7,000. So the cost here is going to be relatively small. To make this test a little more realistic, let's use the non-reasoning version of Claude. We'll just use Claude 4 Sonnet standard. It went long on the name. 20 tokens, though. We'll use that number just to be as fair as possible. So the output was 20 tokens. 20,000 output tokens would be the total. It's $3 per mil in and 15 per mil out. So the input for this would be 25 cents, and the output would be 30 cents for running this test, the exact thing I just did 1,000 times. Remember, Grok 4 is the same price. So let's compare the numbers for Grok 4. Grok 4 had 603 tokens for its output. So it was 603,000 output tokens. That puts it at $9.05. So the total for running these 2 models that are the same cost, one is Grok with its absurd level of reasoning, and one is Claude with reasoning turned off. It's 55 cents versus $9.30. Despite the fact that these are the exact same inputs and the inputs cost the exact same amount, the final price ended up being literally 30 times higher because of, again, this output cost difference. It's insane. 30 cents versus $9.05 for the same output because of all the reasoning. This is why the cost per token isn't a number that matters anymore, because the number of tokens being generated has gone up an absurd amount. My favorite place to see this is back in the actual test cost analysis here. I'm going to show it to you in a very strange spot. Gemini 2.0 Flash. So running the artificial analysis benchmark with Gemini 2.5 Flash reasoning costs $229. The same benchmark with 2.0 Flash cost $3. The reason is both that the cost per token went up between 2.0 and 2.5, but that's not the 100x difference. The 100x difference is the amount of tokens being generated, because 2.5 Flash is a reasoning model. And since it spends $190 reasoning, it ends up being way more expensive. 2.0 Flash doesn't reason. It's actually such a small value here, I can't even hover over the bar to show you the breakdown, because the reasoning cost is 0. This is yet another reason why I still love 2.0 Flash for a bunch of different tasks, because it's the only actual cheap model at scale. And you're not risking O3 Pro or Grok 4 just going to hell and back reasoning things when they don't need to. That's insane. That's absurd. But that's life with these new reasoning models. We just count the number of token difference. We went from about 100,000 total tokens to around 683,000 total tokens. Massive change. This is also why I am upset with our position on the leaderboard on OpenRouter right now. We are currently the most popular app with Grok 4, according to OpenRouter. That is a very expensive problem. Back to the article. Imagine you start a company knowing that consumers won't pay more than $20 a month. Fine, you think. Classic VC playbook. Charge at cost, sacrifice margins for growth. You run the math on the customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, all the above. But here's where it gets interesting. You've seen the A16Z chart showing that LLM costs are dropping 10x every year. This is the chart that I showed that I made a whole video about. This chart doesn't matter anymore because of the things we're talking about now. So you think, I'll break even today at $20 a month, and when the models get 10x cheaper next year, boom, 90% margins. The losses are temporary, the profits are inevitable. Totally not a trap we fell for T3 chat. Grok can make our margins really bad. We'll have to make some big changes to our pricing if we want to keep supporting that model, because that model is evil and very expensive. It's so simple a VC associate could understand it. That's a dig. It's a real one, but still. Year 1, break even at $20 a month. Year 2, 90% margins as compute drops 10x. Year 3, yacht shopping. An understandable strategy. The cost of LLM inference has dropped by a factor of 3 every 6 months. We'll be fine. But after 18 months, margins are about as negative as they've ever been. Windsurf's been sold for parts, and Claude Code has had to roll back their original unlimited $200 a month tier this week. Companies are still bleeding. The models got cheaper. GPT 3.5 costs 10x less than it used to. But somehow the margins got worse, not better. Something doesn't add up. Nobody wants yesterday's newspaper. 3.5 is 10x cheaper, but it's also as desirable as a flip phone at an iPhone launch. When a new model is released as the state of the art, 99% of the demand immediately ships over to that new model. Consumers expect this of their products as well. Now look at the actual pricing history of frontier models, the ones that 99% of the demand is for at any given time. This is the average price per token of the most demanded models. It's stayed pretty consistent. There are moments where it drops. Like for O3 to get as cheap as it did is insane, but the core point here still stands. When 4 launched at $60, everyone used it despite GPT 3.5 being 26 times cheaper. And then when Claude 3 Opus dropped at $60, people switched despite GPT 4 getting price cuts before that. The 10x cost reduction is real, but only for models that might as well be running on a Commodore 64. So this is the first faulty pillar of the costs will drop strategy. Demand exists for the best language model, period. And the best model always costs about the same because that's what the edge of inference costs today. Saying this car is so much cheaper now while pointing to a 95 Civic misses the point. Sure, that specific car is cheaper, but the 2025 Toyota Camry MSRP is at $30K. Yep. And if you're Anthropic, you just never bother dropping the price at all. Ugh. When you're spending time with an AI, whether it's coding, writing, or thinking, you always max out on quality. Nobody opens Claude and thinks, you know what? Let me use the shitty version to save my boss some money. I think that when I'm running benches, but sure. We're cognitively greedy creatures. We want the best brain we can get, especially if we're balancing the other side with our time. This is something we've seen with T3 chat. If I switch this over to O4, we let you pick the reasoning effort. That was a mistake because everyone just picks high. One of the biggest regrets I have is giving this button right here for people to pick one of the options. This is a button that 3x's our costs for no reason. If we didn't have this, people would ask for it, but they wouldn't get much better of answers. As someone who's played a lot with a lot of these and uses O4 Mini every day, it doesn't matter that much. I leave it on medium. I'll sometimes even drop it to low. But most people go and click high every single time. And that is an expensive button to click, even though it doesn't offer you anything. Because the human mind is attracted to the best possible option. They want the most, the best, the smartest. And that's a big part of why they come to T3 Chat as well. Because on T3 Chat, you have access to everything. You're coming for the best. You want the best to be in its best state. You ramp it up to the smartest possible place it can be. You also give it as much context as you could squeeze in before we rate limit you too. And this is where that number gets important. When you pick low, medium, high, what you're actually doing is increasing how much reasoning the model's allowed to do. So if it decides to reason for 10,000 tokens, it just will. And that's why the costs don't really mean anything anymore, because the models are burning more than we think. Okay, but it's still manageable, right? We just break even forever? Oh, sweet summer child. While it's true each generation of frontier model didn't get more expensive per token, something else happened, something worse. The number of tokens that they consumed went absolutely nuclear. ChatGPT used to reply to a one-sentence question with a one-sentence reply. Now Deep Research will spend 3 minutes planning and 20 minutes reading and another 5 minutes rewriting a report for you, while O3 will just run for 20 minutes to answer, "Hello there." The explosion of reinforcement learning and test time compute has resulted in something no one saw coming. The length of a task that AI can complete has been doubling every 6 months. What used to return 1,000 tokens is now returning 100,000. The math gets genuinely insane when you extrapolate. Today, a 20-minute deep research run costs about $1. By 2027, we'll have agents that can run for 24 hours straight without losing the plot. Combine that with the static price of the Frontier, that's a $72 run per day per user with the ability to run multiple asynchronously. I'm scared. Once we can deploy agents to run workloads for 24 hours asynchronously, we won't be giving them one instruction and waiting for feedback. We'll be scheduling them in batches, entire fleets of AI workers attacking problems in parallel, burning tokens like it's 1999. Obviously, and I cannot stress this enough, a $20 a month subscription cannot even support a user making a single $1 deep research run a day. For those asking, why doesn't T3 Chat have deep research? We're $8 a month. We literally cannot do that. We will go out of business immediately. Well, we give you 3? Because we have to cover all the other things you're going to do. If you send 8 deep research requests, we have to lock you out of the app for the rest of the month. Every improvement in model capability is an improvement in how much compute they can meaningfully consume at a time. It's like building a more fuel-efficient engine than using the efficiency gains to build a monster truck. Sure, you're getting more miles per gallon, but you're also using 50 times the number of gallons. This is the short squeeze that forced Windsurf to go the way they did, as well as hurts any flat rate subscription plus useful token intensive workflow like what we have with T3 Chat. We're all staring down the barrel of this right now. Anthropic is valiantly trying to cover this short squeeze. Claude Code's Max Unlimited experiment was the most sophisticated attempt at weathering the storm that we've seen. They tried every trick in the book and they still got obliterated. The playbook was clever. First, they charged 10x the price point, $200 a month when Cursor charges $20. Start with more buffer before the bleeding begins. 2, auto-scale models based on load. Switch from Opus to Sonnet when things get heavy. Optimize with Haiku for reading, like AWS auto-scaling, but for brains. Yep, and I'm sure you've noticed when you use Claude Code, it rotates between models all the time. Depending on what time of day you're doing things and how much traffic they have, they'll shift which models based on the load for what they're dealing with on their side. They almost certainly built this behavior directly into the model weights, which is a paradigm shift we'll probably be seeing more of in the future. Third point that they did, they offloaded processing to user machines. Why spin up your own sandboxes when users have perfectly good CPUs sitting idle? And despite all the engineering brilliance, token consumption still went supernova. The global leaderboards of Claude Code usage. Here is somebody who has done $35,000 of inference. Here's someone who's done $26,000. Yeah, this is the problem. 10 billion tokens. That's 12,500 copies of War and Peace in a month. Do you understand how absurd that is? That's almost 13,000 copies of a long-ass book that you have generated and handled as input and output in a given month. How? Even at 10-minute runs, how does someone drive 10 billion tokens? Turns out that 10 to 20-minute continuous runs are just long enough for people to discover the for loop. Once you decouple token consumption from human time in app, physics takes over. Set Claude on a task, have it check its work, refactor, optimize, repeat until bankruptcy. Users become API orchestrators running 24/7 code transformation engines on Anthropic's dime. The evolution from chat to agent happened overnight. 1000x increase in consumption, phase transition, not gradual change. So Anthropic rolled back the unlimited. They could have tried $2,000 a month, but the lesson isn't that they didn't charge enough, is that there is no way to offer unlimited usage in this new world under any subscription model. There is no flat subscription price that works in this new world. The math has fundamentally broken. All true statements. Oh shit. Someone else has a new lead on VibeRank at $500,000 of total cost. They did $96,000 in the last 30 days alone. That's insane. Absolutely insane. The prisoner's dilemma for everyone else. This leaves everyone else in an impossible position. Every AI company knows usage-based pricing would save them. They also know it would kill them. While you're being responsible with 1 cent per 1,000 tokens, your VC-funded competitor is offering unlimited for $20 a month. Guess where users go? I covered this in the Gemini CLI video. These companies are offering these unlimited plans knowing it's going to cost them money because they just want to get the customers over and squeeze out all the competition. Whoever has a bank account that survives the longest is the winner by default because everybody else will go out of business. Everyone charges usage-based, the industry is sustainable. If everyone charges flat rate, it's a race to the bottom. If you charge usage and others charge flat, you die alone. And if you charge a flat rate and others charge users, you win and then you die later when you're out of money. So everyone defects. Everyone subsidizes power users. Everyone posts hockey stick growth charts. Everyone eventually posts important pricing updates. Cursor, Lovable, Replit, they all know the math. They chose growth today, profits tomorrow, bankruptcy eventually, but that's the next CEO's problem. Honestly, probably right. In a land grab, market share beats margins, as long as VCs keep writing checks to paper over unit economics. Thankfully, we are still profitable with T3 chat. I keep a close eye on those margins, and things like the Grok 4 drop hurt them a lot. We have to be real careful long-term, making sure things are reasonable. And we'll be redoing the rate limit soon to make it a little harder to abuse, but easier to use every day. I really want to figure out how we balance that out. It's tough, though, because we're fighting the same problems they are here. Thankfully, people aren't using T3 chat to run tasks for 20 minutes straight, so we have a much different cost profile here, but we still have to be super careful. Is it even possible to avoid the token short squeeze? Cognition's rumored to be raising at a $15 billion valuation, while externally they haven't even reported 100 million ARR. Probably closer to 50 mil, according to the author. That sounds about right to me. This contrasts with the 10 bill valuation that Cursor raised on at a 500 million ARR with a much steeper curve. More than 8 times the revenue, 2/3 the valuation. What do VCs know about Cognition that we don't? They're both AI agents that write code. Has Cognition figured out a way out of the death spiral? The author thinks that there are 3 ways out. Usage priced from day one, no subsidies, no acquire now, monetize later, just honest economics. Except show me the consumer usage-based AI company that's exploding. Consumers hate metered billing. They'd rather overpay for unlimited than get surprised by a bill. Every successful consumer subscription, Netflix, Spotify, ChatGPT, is flat rate. The moment you add a meter, growth dies. And that's how Spotify won. That's not even arguable. Before Spotify, you would buy albums, and with Spotify, you don't. People like the subscription with unlimited options much more than they like paying for the option when they choose it. Insane switching costs leads to high margins. This is what Devon's all in on. They announced their Citi and Goldman Sachs partnerships, deploying Devon to 40,000 software engineers at both companies. At $20 a month, this is a $10 million project. But here's a question. Would you rather have 10 million of ARR from Goldman Sachs or 500 million from prosumer developers? The answer is obvious. 6-month implementations, compliance reviews, security audits, procurement hell. All of this means that the Goldman Sachs revenue is hard to win. But once you win, it's impossible to churn. You only get those contracts if the singular decision maker at the bank is staking their reputation on you, and everyone will do everything they can to make it work. This is also why the largest software companies outside of hyperscalers are all system of record companies that sell to those exact personas, the CRMs, ERPs, and EHRs of the world. They all make 80-90% margins because the harder it is to churn, the less price sensitive the buyer is. By the time a competitor shows up, you're so deep in bureaucracy that switching would require another 6-month sales cycle. It's not even that you can't leave, it's that your CFO would rather die than go through another vendor evaluation. And then option 3, vertical integration. You can make more money on the infra. This is Replit's game. Bundle the coding agent with your application hosting, database management, deployment monitoring, logging, etc. Lose money on every token, but capture value at every single other layer of the stack for this new generation of devs. Just look at how vertically integrated Replit is. It's a shame that their infra barely works, but they do have all of it owned themselves. Use AI as a loss leader to drive consumption of AWS competitive services. You're not selling inference, you're selling everything else. And inference is just a market spend. The genius is that CodeGen naturally creates demand for hosting. Every app needs somewhere to run. Every database needs management. Every deployment needs monitoring. Let OpenAI and Anthropic race inference to zero while you own everything else. This is kind of the bet that I've been making too. I don't necessarily care who wins in making the best model for the best price, as long as I have the best app to use them in. The companies that are still playing flat rate grow at all costs, they're dead companies walking. They just have very expensive funerals scheduled for Q4. Love this. Keep seeing founders point to the models will be 10x cheaper next year, like it's a life raft. Sure, and your users will expect 20 times more from them. The goalpost is sprinting away from you. Remember Windsurf? They couldn't figure out a way to maneuver out because the pressure that Cursor put on their profits and losses. Even Anthropic, with the most vertically integrated application layer on the planet, can't make a flat subscription work with unlimited usage. While the summary from Levered Beta is all you need, which is that being early beats being smart, is still true, being early without a plan also means you're getting to the graveyard first. There's no Google writing a $2.4 billion check for negative margin businesses. There's no we'll figure it out later when later means your AWS bill is larger than your revenue. So how do you build a business in this world? The short answer is be a neocloud, which is the title of my next thing. But at least the models will be 10 times cheaper next year. This was a phenomenal blog post. I'll absolutely be subscribing to Ethan's Substack and checking out his next post about the neocloud right when it drops. You should probably do the same. This is incredible content. I think that's everything I have to say about this. Yeah, my bank account's going to be hurting a lot very, very soon. Oh boy. I could be like Grok 4 and ramble, but I'd rather wrap up quick. Thank you for listening, and until next time, peace nerds.